Nowadays, science and technology have become essential for the world's development, and opportunities like this one are perfect to put our skills into action, show what we are made of, and demonstrate the world what we are capable of doing as a nation. We are Team Mexico.
Each year, all the participant countries of the first Global Challenge get the task to recruit a selection of 5 members and 2 mentors to work together and build a robot to compete in the international field of the Global Championship. I'm Leo Salazar, and I'll work with the team as a mentor for the programming and electronics areas.
The programming area has the task to bring to life every system and mechanism that exists in the robot. Our abilities with coding, as well as our logic thinking and technical knowledge, allows us to do this in the most efficient, clear, and elegant way.
Right now, our efforts are aimed to develop a robot code as soon as possible, but we are thinking even further, and we are learning about different programming forms and methods in order to help several foreign teams with their projects.
Designing the robot chassis or its specific mechanism seems to be easy, but in fact, it's a whole adventure by itself. Part of my job is doing this in the very first time, as well as connecting and setting up all the electronic components in the robot.
I'm really excited about this new opportunity. We are ready to give the best of ourselves. And for me, my job is to keep all the team's social media updated, as well as present all the multimedia material when they are needed. It's awesome to be part of this. I'm really enjoying it.
Building the robot is a whole process. For thinking what mechanical systems are more suitable to our necessities, to creating prototypes every single time a new mechanism is required. My job is to coordinate these efforts to get the best results possible.
Right now, we are working with available rep kits we have. Our team strategy is a rolling process, and we are sure that as soon as we have it, the mechanism of the robot will be completely ensured.
Also, there are guidelines and due dates we must follow. One of our principal responsibilities is to be in constant contact with our sponsors, the media, all the other teams in the world, and various organizations. All of these activities, as well as the documentation related, are down to me.
We're all taking the best of ourselves, and we know that being here represents an enormous responsibility. But we also know that there's no bigger pride than representing your country and their people. My name is Max, and I'll be the coach for the 2019 Mexican First Global Challenge team. We are ready to put in height not only our efforts, but more importantly, our nation.
Okay, I see we're live. Hi, I'm Arjun from Wizards.exe and FTC team. I'll go a little bit more about my background a little bit later. So yeah. I actually got involved too close just under 10 years ago because my dad actually took me to our first Lego League state championship, and then a few years later we I got involved in first Lego League, and then after that I moved on to First Tech Challenge team Wizards.exe, which we won the world championship in Detroit in 2018, which led to our team being chosen as Team USA 2018, which I was the robot lead on, and I did a lot of the programming, prototyping in CAD, so I have a lot of experience in all of First Global. I'm the international outreach lead on our team, so I try to be as involved in the First Global community as I can be. So over this summer, I've actually made over 20 videos for First Global teams. I currently mentor three First Global teams, and I try to be active on the WhatsApp group and Discord, and sometimes the Control Hub whenever I can be, including when I'm at school. Yep.
Hundred, and in both of them I work as a programmer. I have experience working with Java, some kind of experience working with blocks, and also I have a lot of expectations working here at First World Challenge for my first year.
Yeah, and since this is my last year, I really like to enjoy everything I do. So, as I told you, and I will continue telling you, I'm really excited of this opportunity.
Awesome, guys. Thank you very much. And it's really cool to have you with us today, Arjun. Along the weeks, we have been responding and helping other teams to solve their doubts. But having you here definitely helps to reach even more teams looking for advice. Here with me, I have our technical crew, which is Miguel and Jorge. And along you, we'll be responding some questions that teams have sent us in this last week. So we should start, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is how today's show will work. We have been receiving your questions in all topics, but to maximize the number of people we can help, we have divided them into three different sections. The first one, mechanical issues, then programming and control, and finally, game strategy. We will be reading each one of the questions we have received, and with your help, Arjun, guys, we will try to offer a useful and concrete answer. Remember, you can still send us your questions via our live chat or on our official social media pages, which are below us. And to begin with, let's pass to the first of the three categories, mechanical systems and components. Please, Jorge, tell us something quickly about what does mechanical area does.
Okay, so here in Team Mexico, we are like three official members that are working on the area, but in total we are more than 10 people working on the robot design, working with all the mechanical systems that we're going to use. For example, the intakes for the small pollutants, the intakes for the big pollutants, the mechanisms that we are trying to make, like shooters, elevators, and stuff like that. And also we have specific team members that are in charge of the design of the robot in CAD, because we really try to make everything we do in the best way. So right now we are trying to make specific words of certain mechanisms to make the robot more capable of doing the task we need to do in the game. Right here we are two programmers, and I'm the mechanical helper of the official team. And I think it is maybe the most important area of the team, because the robot is one of the things that we see the most when we are in the competition. You were last year in the competition and you can confirm that. So I think that solving all the doubts and the questions that we have of this topic would be really interesting and maybe the most supportive and the most important thing to solve and to help other teams.
Okay, so well, let's begin with the questions, guys. The first one comes from Team Albania, one of the teams we have already had here in Global Talks. I think it was 2 weeks ago. So this is a question, it goes about mechanics. They are asking how to join pieces of chain back together without any specific tool for chain. I think we already had this question a few moments ago off live, and there are some videos in the 2018 Team Mexico's page, you said, Arjun?
Yeah. So last year, Team Mexico did a lot of live streams, and one of their live streams was how to break chain and put it back together without having the chain breaker.
Team Mexico's mission was to upload short videos about several different mechanical topics, and one of those videos is about how to use chain without a chain tool. So I'm gonna check for that video and I'm gonna send it to Team Albania. Okay, so let's go to the next question, and comes from an African team that didn't want to be spread. And it goes about the shooter system. They're asking what's the best way to do a shooter for micropollutants without wasting so much material.
That in First Global, there's resources about how to make a micropollutant shooter. That is also the code released. So maybe the question is how to do a micropollutant without using all those mechanisms. I don't know if you have like some advice you can give to them.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna quickly look at the guide just to refresh my memory, but I believe that that guide was actually a really good guide on how to build a shooter, and I don't think there's much you could improve. I'm just going, so you can see on the shooter, there's lots of long pieces of rev extrusion. If you feel like it, you could in fact remove some of those inside corner brackets or brackets going between, as it's a very strong shooter, as well as you could change the mounting brackets on the shooter. But other than that, it's a very good design, and if you want it to be as strong as it is, you should use all the included parts that they recommend. Maybe change a little bit for your mounting.
Yes, from part of Team Mexico, we have already done it and we have tried it. We have made some, like you said, to change a little things to make it a little bit more efficient. And from our part, we think that it is a very good mechanism. That if you don't have like an idea of another type of mechanism that can work to shoot the micropollutants, that is maybe the best option you can take.
Okay, so I think there are resources in the official First Global page. We're gonna get the link and send it to you, team, so you may check it out.
But also, I would like to tell the teams that we have been making some mechanisms to specifically to shoot the balls, micropollutants, because you know the height of the field is really big. So maybe shooting is one of the best things you can do. We will talk later about the strategy of the game. But we would like to make and show later our mechanisms and what we have done with these weeks. So that's like a commitment from Team Mexico to all the teams.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next question, and says, some of our brackets got broken, and our question goes about if we can 3D print more and use them in the robot. Is there any problem with that?
Yeah. So you're not allowed to 3D print replacement brackets for your robot. You're not allowed to really use anything outside of the Rev official parts or whatever came in the kit, because Rev does not make the Fire tablet or the webcam. But you're not allowed to use any 3D printed parts. And another thing that I've had is one of the teams I mentor actually thought they could use glue. You're not allowed to use glue on your robot either. That's another thing. No glue, no tape either.
My friend Mike and I read that you can use like glue, but in really small quantities. I don't know if you have
Information maybe.
Something to say about that.
Yeah, I would just ask on the Control Hub forum to get an official ruling on it.
Okay.
Because, yeah.
Go ahead.
Just ask on the Control Hub if you're planning on using glue, and try and get an official ruling on it. Because right now on this show, nothing we say is like 100% official. It's only what First Global says. So if you're planning on doing anything that's really close to the borders, like your question, for example, I would just ask it on the Control Hub so you can get an official answer, so that if you do it, nobody's going to stop you at the competition and say, hey, you couldn't do that.
Okay, so I think the only thing sure we have is that you can use as a team every single part of the kit of parts, including the cup itself, the plastic cup. So there are teams that have used those parts in plastic and.
Actually, last year I did ask if you could use the crate as part of your robot. They said no.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm not completely sure of the reasoning, and it might change this for this year. But they said you're not allowed to use you're not allowed to cut up the crate and use it as part of your robot.
Because I think that this year the plastic cup itself comes in the Pumba materials, doesn't it?
Build materials.
It was the same last year.
Maybe we should ask in the official forum to get the correct. I think that we were considering using part of the kit of parts of the cup. So I think we're gonna ask to the forum.
Yeah.
Okay, and here we got, and there's another question from another team from Africa, and it's I don't know if it's the right way to say it, but what's the best chassis for the competition?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Should Mike and Jorge, do you have anything to say, or do you want me to go on about what I think?
In my opinion, I think that so I'm the driver of the robot, so I have tested all the chassis possible, and I think that the holonomic chassis, do you know which one is it? I think it is the best one to control and drive your robot, because you can move in any direction you want. But in this case, since you only have 8 motors to use in your robot, and it uses 4 in the way we tasted, I think it is not an option to consider, because you're losing almost half of your motors possible or available. So I think that using maybe an H drive could be a really good idea to move you in vertical and horizontal directions. So if you don't have like the knowledge or the ability to do the H drive, you can keep it with a normal tank drive.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all the teams that I've mentored, I initially said you should try and use an H drive, mainly because I know last year Team USA 2018 did post a guide on how to make a very basic tank drive. And with that tank drive, it's very simple to build, and a lot of teams are able to build it easily. But then later on, once your team gets far enough into the season that you feel like you're ready to have a challenge, you can add on the center wheel of the H drive and make your robot strafe without needing the commitment to a holonomic drive, where as soon as you get it, you have to do a holonomic drive. You can still revert to a tank drive if you need that extra motor.
Yes, and we got to the conclusion, and we made like a big analysis of if it was more if it was a better idea to go and take and use the holonomic drive, but that motor makes a lot of difference. So I think that for all the teams that, like you said, want to take that challenge during the season, can go and test the H drive, and it could work better than the tank drive a lot, and it can be an advantage for all the teams that use it.
Yeah. So another thing that I forgot to mention just before, a holonomic drive is fairly hard to build if you want to build an intake in the front of it, because for most teams, if they build a holonomic drive, it's going to become a square or a rectangle. With an H drive, you can easily build an intake in it using either an H frame or an HU frame, where you still have one like indent in your drivetrain, which you can use for any sort of intake.
Yeah, that was like the detonante. How do you say? It was like the factor that determined or that made us to keep the autonomic drive and to continue working with the H drive and with the tank drive. So our recommendation is to start with a tank drive. It is maybe the easiest way to make the robot. There are a lot of resources on internet. I think you have some videos of how to build a tank drive. I'm not sure. And also there are some videos in the official First Global resources. And if you want that challenge, you can go and take the H drive, only for one motor more.
Yeah.
Okay, are we good to continue? This question comes from a team that says they have already asked it in the group, and I think and they think you answered it, but they are not sure again, and they want to make sure that there's an answer for this. They're having problems with the pulley system, especially with the pulley cord. They are asking how to put it. They're having some trouble, and they want to know if you got any tip for that.
Yeah. So polychords, in my experience, I'm not sure about Team Mexico's experience. We actually had on Team USA 2018, we had two really long polychords on two little pulleys. For it, they're very hard to get together and make your loop because of how not how hard the polychord is. So one thing that we did is we took some very, very hot water, like very close to boiling, and put the end of the polychord in it for around a minute or a minute and a half. That's going to soften the polychord enough that it's going to be easier for your barb to get the polychord barb to get into it. And then another thing you have to make sure is that it's under tension, because if your polychord is not under tension, it's going to start slipping a lot. So that's another thing that we've had problems with.
Okay, well, I think that the team that just asked that is watching the live stream, so they got the answer. And well, let's go to the next question. I want to say it, but someone's asking, Arjun, why do you know so much?
Okay. I know so much mainly because I do a lot of first robotics, and I just have a lot of experience in FTC. And a majority of my summer last year was spent like all day either CADing or building or programming our robot last year. And then this year, again, a majority of my time was spent making videos for teams or helping teams out. And I just spend so much time on it. That's the main reason.
Okay.
Yeah, we are really surprised or amazed of all the information you know. We don't have that experience, like Mike said a few minutes ago. Our FTC team has only 1 year, but thanks to all the experience we had from the FRC team, we could be the Mexican representative in the first championship in Houston this year or last year. So we are like getting more experience with the pass of the years. So we hope we can get all the knowledge you know and we can share. And I don't know if you have like some manuals or something like that to share that and get more experience as we can.
Yeah, actually, this is one thing that's somewhat unrelated to First Global, but I still think it's a great resource. There's a thing that's been done by many of like the top FTC teams in the world. Like I know like a good amount, like probably like 20 or 30 teams that advanced to the World Championship worked on this. It's called First Tech Challenge Game Manual Part 0. It's an unofficial guide to FTC. It's like 200 pages, and it applies to FTC teams, and it goes over like all of the robot things and some outreach things, mainly hardware, but a little bit of software. I think that it's a very good resource for both first global teams and FTC teams, even though it does go over mainly FTC concepts. The link to it is gm0.copr.cc. I'll post a link to it in the Twitch chat right now. But that's a great guide.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Not awesome not only for us, but for all the teams that are watching the video. Maybe you don't know they're wondering if they could open an FTC team next year or something like that. So that would be really helpful for all of them.
Yeah.
Okay, because as we know, First Global is usually the door for a lot of new FTC teams in the world. So, well, that's good. And about the guide you were saying, Arjun, I think I saw it like last week when I was looking for questions. So I'm going to look for it and send it to the group. And if you have it, well, you can just send it.
Yeah, there's also a large FTC Discord chat where since the FTC is mainly the US teams, and while there are a lot of First Tech Challenge international teams, the majority of them are from the US. Discord is used a lot more in the US. There's a large FTC Discord, which I'll also send the link on the Twitch chat, where you're probably going to be able to get much more assistance on questions, as it's much larger than any of the First Global groups.
Okay, yeah, I've heard some things about the Discord group. I think there are people of almost any country of the world, I think, even more than in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my experience, or what I have in First, is that there are a lot of groups, like you said, in Discord or even in WhatsApp or something like that, in social media, in Facebook, but most of the teams don't have the opportunity to know or get to know these teams. So they don't have like the way to get connected with all these teams and get like the advice and the help that you are giving, and that is not really complicated, but they don't have like this knowledge of the existence of these groups. So for all the teams that are watching and all the teams that will watch this video, this Twitch in YouTube, and weeks later, they can get to know that teams in the US, teams in Mexico are trying to give all the help possible to them to start new teams and to make every time teams better.
Yeah.
Okay, and well, those were the questions of the mechanics and prototype section. Now let's go to the second part of the show, of the Q&A, and it's the programming and control related questions. For this, we have Mike with us today, who will explain us a bit of what is the programming area.
Well, what we do in the programming area is to make the robot move, basically, and to improve the software of the robot via like sensors, encoders, vision with euphoria, etc., etc. And it's all that work that some people think that is pretty hard and for nerds, but personally I think that is pretty fun and a great way to learn.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but last year we were able or permitted to program in Android Studio, and the difference from last year and this year is that this year we can only program in what is blocky and in onbot. So it is the same language, but it is not the same place we are programming. So I don't know if teams have like some questions about what's the difference in the things that changed from last year and this year. And I think that we can help them solving these questions.
Well, what I think about is that onbot and Android Studio have like a gap that is not so big, but it is a gap between them, because in Android Studio it's pretty more like a developed software, pretty professional, and onbot is a web tool. Honestly, I like more Android Studio, but this season we don't have the opportunity to use it. So I'm trying to get that to onbot, and all that I can say is that it's pretty easier to work with onbot than with Java Studio. No, with Android Studio.
Yeah. if we're talking about the difference between blocks and Android Studio, another main difference between them is the fact that onBot Java compiles in under 10 seconds for most programs, while depending on the speed of your computer, Android Studio will take up to minutes for that, which is a nice thing. But onBot Java also sacrifices a few features that are very useful, such as I believe it does not automatically finish your functions, which can be a little bit annoying at sometimes.
Okay, and we got some questions for the programming and control related areas. And the first one says, "Hello, I'm having problems with my control hub. Is there any code for the light for the LEDs and its lights and how to understand what it means?"
Yeah, of course. There's So I believe that it's in the first Global Control Hub startup guide, the PDF in the robot kit. If it's not there, I would check. Otherwise, it's going to be in the Rev Expansion Hub guide, which is under revrobotics.com/resources. I'll just do a quick check right now and post the link on the Twitch chat so you can have that.
Okay. Well, it's important to say to every team that it's not well informed about the first world. Everything isn't documented. Everything is documented. Everything is on the first global page, whether in the first global page or in the ref page. And just you have to check it out. Oh, of course, we can send you the file directly. And yeah, that's it. Okay, so well, Arjun, you're gonna look for the document and then you will send it, right?
Yeah. So I'm first just going to send the control system startup guide, and then I'm also going to send the Rev Robotics guide, the expansion of guide, since that's a little bit more in depth.
Okay. And meanwhile, let's go to the next question. And it says, "I've been part of an FGC team for 1 year in the programming area. Now I'm in my national FGZ team. Do I have to learn more things about programming for FGZ, or is it the same from FTC?"
Well, what I can say is that the programming in FTC and in FGC is similar, for not saying the same, because it's the same tools, Android Studio, onBot, Blocky, etc., and it's basically the same everything, just with the difference that in the FGC kit you have like more sensors, and with, well, not much sensors, in that you have more restriction about what you can use to control the robot.
Yeah, one other thing I'm going to regarding the programming, this is the first year that the Control Hub is compatible with both the first global app and the FTC app. So for all my videos, I wasn't able to get a hold of the first global SDK, as Rev Robotics was not able to give that to me, but I was still able to use the FTC app. So the programming is still almost exactly the same. The main difference is the fact that you don't have an autonomous mode in first global, so you don't need to program any autonomous programs. And also, again, your sensors are limited. But the Control Hub is still very similar to the FTC phone system in that way. And actually, some teams this year in the US, there are a few regions that are actually using the Control Hub for their teams as part of a beta testing program.
Okay. And on the next question, it goes about motors, and it says, "Hello, I'm having problems programming my DC motors. Is there any video or a guide to do this in a more easy way?"
Yeah, like we said a few minutes ago, everything is documented, and there are teams, for example, Arjun's team, that gave or have the detalle. How do you say?
What?
El detalle.
Detail.
The detail of making these video tutorials to help all the teams, so you can, like, the ones that ask the question, you can go to look in the internet, and there are a lot of resources. Maybe we can look later for the specific link of the video, and we can share it in the chat in a few minutes.
I think Arjun shared it in the group like 2 weeks ago or something like that, didn't you, Arjun?
Which I'm sorry, the audio on your question cut out. Can you just repeat the question really quickly?
It goes about motor programming. It's
yes.
yeah.
So that video, I'll just give a little advertisement for it right now. Covers a lot of concepts that can be used both in blocks and on bot Java. Because I remember one team that I was helping, he asked for on bot Java sample code, and I sent him the Team USA 2018 code that we used. And he didn't understand a lot of the motor programming things just because a lot of them aren't really like commonly known about. A lot of teams will just either use set power or run to position. So that covers almost all of the modes that you can use with your motor. I'll just put it on the Twitch chat right now.
Teams that would be really helpful for the teams that ask for it.
Yeah. So just give me like, I'll post it in like 30 seconds or something. Yeah.
That's okay. Awesome. And let's go to the next question. And it says, hello, my 2017 first global national team sent us a control hub from that year, 2017. Is it possible to get it connected with this year's software?
No.
No,
Yeah.
that's. I get to know that the control hubs have been evolving, and we cannot use the control hubs from last year in this competition due to all the things that changed. And
Yeah.
the only thing we can do is to use this year control hubs.
Yeah, so I was talking with Rev Robotics. So what they said is, so this year actually, since they're trying to mass produce the control hubs, they switched processors to something that they could actually buy a lot more quantity of. So there's a different processor in this year's control hub, even though the outside of it looks the same. And you also get a USB-C port on this year's control hub. But so what they said is the 2017 control hub is only compatible with the 2017 Fire tablet and the 2017 First Global app. 2018 is the same. It's only compatible with the 2018 stuff. 2019, this year, is a little bit different as it's also compatible with the first Tech Challenge app as well as the First Global app. But no, you're not really able to do backwards compatibility with it.
Okay, let me look for the next question. Where is it? Okay, here it is. It's a short question. Is it possible to connect a TV screen to our control hub?
Yes.
There's an HDMI port in the control hub? Yeah. No.
Yes.
Yes.
It's very simple. Yeah, so it's very simple. You just connect an HDMI screen to your control hub. You can also do this to view your Vuforia. So if you connect the camera up to your control hub, in the sample code in the Vuforia Vision Guide in First Global, they show you how to make sure that it actually shows the frame on your control hub. So if you connect it to a TV, you can see in real time what the camera is seeing.
Okay. And then, well, let's go to the last question. And I think here Mike and Jorge can help us. Is it too difficult to use vision in our robot? What's the first step to do so?
Well, in my opinion, I can say that my experience with Vuforia and in First Tech Challenge and in First Global is pretty basic because I have only worked 1 year here. And for me, it's I would not say that it's pretty difficult, but yes, it's pretty like ¿cómo es tardado? ¿Cómo? Tardado.
Like too long to understand and to work with.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have something else to add, or I have something to say about this too?
Yeah, we would like to say that we consider that using vision in this year First Global Challenge would be really useful because it can help you in a lot of things. For example, when you try to acomodar, to set up your robot, to align your robot to the objectives in the field. It can be. You said a few minutes ago that the difference is that you don't need to make an autonomous code or something like that, but I think that you can make some things of commands and methods to align your robot and to make it easier when you are playing in the game. And we consider and we we will send in a few minutes to the group chat the links that First Global has released about how to use Vision and all the codes that are in examples in the platforms and in the resources they have published.
Yeah. So again, it's the Vision guide. In my opinion, I think that the difference between Vision and all the other things in your first global kit is that for Vision, you're going to have to do a little bit more thinking about how you're going to implement it into your robot. It's not as easy as all the other things in your code, as you're going to have to do a lot of coding without any documentation there. So First Global gives you the documentation on how to get the coordinates of your robot from the Vuforia target. But then your team has to figure out how to use that in order to make your robot guide to or from or whatever you want to do with it. And so again, the Vision is a great system, but it is a little bit harder. And so my thought on it is you should only work on Vision once you're done with everything else.
Okay. Well, and do you wanted to say something? No.
I think that if you are having troubles, for all the teams, if you are having troubles with your robot and your basic programming, not to go directly to the Vision system and to focus on first finishing the code of the robot and then going to this hard task that is Vision.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next question. And it says, help! And then a smiling face. My encoders are not working. I think I got all the coding right, but they're still not working. Hello to Arjun, a dear friend from Europe.
Okay. This is something that I actually... a few teams have been having this, if it's your HD hex motor. My theory is that the batch of HD hex motors that they sent to some of the first global teams were possibly slightly faulty. But First Global Team UK this year made a great guide on how to fix your encoder for your HD hex motor. So I'll post that in the Twitch chat. But that's honestly one of the most useful videos I think that's been released by a team this year, just because it helps you fix your robot.
Okay, well, we got a contact of Team UK, so I think the video is on their Facebook page or in a group maybe. But anyway, we'll contact them and ask them for help, and we'll refer this guy here to Team UK.
I just posted the link into the Twitch chat. So if you want to take a look at that video on how they said to fix the encoder, they just it's in the Twitch chat right now.
Okay, so I think we are done with the... We have another question? Okay.
No, about programming it's over. Let's go to the next section.
Yeah.
Okay, and well, last but not least, let's go to our third set of questions related to game strategy and mechanics of the game. And well, I need the help of both of you guys to explain us a bit of why you think game strategy is important for a team.
Okay, so first of all, we think that the first thing a team needs to do is to make a game strategy for the robot, because that's the basis of what the robot is gonna do in the game. If you don't have like a game strategy, you're gonna make like a robot that is gonna do a lot of tasks, and you are not going to make a task in a perfect way, or maybe in the way you can do it if you did the strategy before. I think we need to make to prioritize the task that we consider more important, to put all efforts in finishing first all the mechanisms that are required for that task, and then when we finish the things that are first in the list, we can go and do the things that are next, so we can finish what we think is gonna give us maybe the most quantity of points, or is gonna be the most important thing at the hour of the game. And another thing is that we need to consider all the possibilities that can happen when you are on the field. You don't know if a robot is gonna stop working in the middle of the game. That happened a lot last year. Also, you don't know if a robot is not coming to the game. You don't know if if the other teams are making like some strategy to make you don't do what you want to do, so you need to like make that hypothetical situations when your robot is not doing something or your alliance is not working like you want to do, so you can cover all those
mistakes,
all those possible mistakes or barriers, so you can do the best in all games possible. I don't know if you have something to say.
Yeah, I think you got a really good thing on a good view on strategy. That's actually how our FTC team also did strategy at the beginning of the season for First Tech Challenge. One thing that I think you should also take into account is the fact that you should assume that your drivers might make mistakes or aren't perfect, because that's something that'll happen that you need to take into account. Is if your drivers aren't like the fastest, because it takes a lot of practice to get to the level where you're going to be like have an amazing driver. You should take into account your driver too.
Okay.
Okay, and well, tomorrow will be a really, really important day for all FTC teams. So from here, good luck everybody from now, and well, have a great season and get the best game strategy for this year's challenge.
Happy kickoff.
Yeah, I also like to. I want to hear your opinion of this year's challenge.
Well,
I don't know what you think about it. Do you think it's better than last year's challenge? If it's more complicated, if it is gonna take more effort, what do you think?
Okay, so last year's challenge I think was a lot more strategy heavy because of the fact that what the strategy boiled down to at the competition was you have a team or multiple teams trying to get all 5 solar panels as fast as you can. And then after that, you had everybody cycling and getting all the colored blocks in the windmill, and then after that, everybody cycling the blocks into the goal on the side. I don't remember what it's called. This year is a lot simpler of a game. It's basically just try and get as many of the pollutants into the processing barge or the corner, the human player station, during the majority of the match, and then at the end you just need to dock or hang. And so what I think the strategy, this is one thing that I think is going to happen, and this is one strategy that I think is actually great, is for teams who don't like have the skill or are still rookie to just put all the pollutants you can into the corner and just plow them into the corner, and then have the human player manually load them into your robot really quickly, and then your robot just lifts them up and scores them into the center. And another thing that I might think there's going to happen is there might be a robot that, for example, just plows them in, and then another robot that's a shooter that just stays in one place. And whenever a micro pollutant gets put into the corner, a human player loads it into the robot and it shoots it up into the top level of the processing barge. Or you could have a team that just has linear slides that goes between the human player, the wall, and the processing barge. But I think that it's going to end up coming down to how fast you can get the pollutants up into the top level, and then hang. So personally, I'll say this now. I was planning on saying it later in the show anyways, is that I think I tried to encourage all my teams to first focus on the hang of your robot, because if your robot isn't able to, that hang doesn't require driver skill really. It's very simple to do, and it gives you 20 points, which is a lot of points for how simple of a task it might be and how consistent you'll be able to get it. Because for pollutants, it relies on a lot of randomness and driver skill. Hang does not really require much driver skill. And then I said, teams, then you should focus on your pollutant scoring arm after you get your hang working. And another thing that I think is going to happen is there are 30 micropollutants and 50 macropollutants on the field. The field is going to get filled with macropollutants, and the micropollutants are just going to be in between the macropollutants, it's going to be very hard to find them. So the teams that can only score the micropollutants are going to end up having to hunt around for them, while the teams that can score both or just the macropollutants are going to have a much easier time scoring, since they only have to score big ones, which are very plentiful on the field. Yeah, that's all I have to say on strategy. Is that I think that's what I give to my teams that I mentored too. That's what I say.
Yeah, we agree in all you said. We have thought about it in the things we have been doing during the season. And what do you think? You have seen FRC from last year, right?
Which FRC game? Oh, Deep Space. Yes.
Deep Space, yes.
And have you seen Up?
Yeah, I remember Power Up a lot. Yeah.
So you remember, in this case, the Chessy Puffs, that when they were lifting, they also helped to lift another robot.
Yeah.
Do you think this could be possible in this year's challenge?
So absolutely, it's definitely possible, but I don't think that it's viable for any teams to do it easily. There's a few reasons for this. The main reason is just because you're limited to the rev kit, and it's very hard to build something that can go under another robot easily. Just because you don't know how teams build their robots. Another thing is that robots, when they hang, they're going to be inclined to angle backwards. Which if they put the lifter of the second robot like that, the second robot's probably going to fall at some point. So you'd have to build hooks onto the end, which becomes a very heavy arm to it. And so I think it's very hard. And the last thing, I was actually talking about this yesterday night, is that it's also very hard to drive into that. So it's very hard to line your robot up to pick up another robot. So that's going to be a driving skills thing, which sometimes driving can be very hard for teams, especially when the field is really big and it's elevated, which means that it's much closer to eye level instead of a top view, which is a top view is much easier to drive on than something that's eye level.
Well, as a recommendation, I would say that, like Arjun said, sometimes in the field there will be a lot of type of robots. So what I'd like to do in this kind of challenge is to check all those type of robots that the teams can make, and then list them into a list, and see what whose of them can be like the most effective ways to do a robot. Well,
yeah, one other thing, I think this is a great thing. This is something that I feel like at least one very high level team will do, is I feel like somebody is going to be at the competition, or if you're a high level team listening to this, you might want to do this, is have a hanging mechanism that you have a design for that you can make very easily, that you can attach to many different robots. I know this is a fairly common practice in FTC, where you'll actually design a subsystem that'll be able to be put on other robots, so that you can teach another team how to build a hanging mechanism during the competition, so that they'll be able to hang during your match. So you can help teach another team how to hang at the competition. That's something that might happen there.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't know if Ricardo, you have something more to say?
Well, in fact, the only question about game strategy was your opinion about the game, and you have already gave it. So, well, let's go to the next part of the show and the last one. And well, these were maybe most of the questions you sent us, teams. Thank you, Jorge and Mike, and of course Arjun, for helping answering them. And now I'd like to listen specifically to you, Arjun. This is your fourth year in FGC, and well, you were part of Team USA last global competition, and you are a true example of natural skill when it comes to technical issues. So I have a question for you. What's your best tip for an FGC team to be as successful in the competition? I mean, you have reached things some of the teams would like to emulate, but what's your advice not to only do this, but to be the best version of each one of the teams?
So, this is a question that I think is a great question. And one of the things that I can't emphasize enough is to be consistent in what you do. So I'll tell you a little story. This was our rookie year in FTC was like 4 or 5 years ago. And in our rookie year, we didn't have much building experience. We weren't the best designed team. We had a very simple robot, and it did the one thing that was ironically the hang mechanism, which scored the most points, just like it does this year. And every match we would hang and do autonomous, and this actually made us we did so well just because of that and being so consistent that we actually advanced to the world championship in our rookie year, being one of the few teams that does that in First Tech Challenge. And oftentimes, when there's a team that does one thing consistently, or two or three things, but not really consistently, like sometimes, like say their driving isn't perfect and it depends on the randomness, the team that does consistently is going to be the team that does better because they do the same thing every time. They practice it. It's very easy for them. While the team that's not as consistent is going to have to do a lot more troubleshooting. Their robot might break. So I think that consistency is the key thing for all First Global teams and First Tech Challenge teams to focus on.
Okay, and well, is there any other tip you would like to say to all the FGC teams?
Yeah, of course. I have a lot of tips to say. One thing that this helps with consistency is stay calm during the competition. I know it's a huge venue. There's a lot of people looking in. The one thing that you can do to help your team do better as a driver that's not related to driver skill is staying calm. If you panic, you're going to not drive as well, and sometimes you'll make bad decisions on the field. So try and stay as calm as possible. And yeah, I know it can be really stressful and because it's such a huge competition, but don't panic. If you stay calm, you'll have a lot more fun and you'll just enjoy the event a lot more. So another thing, try to think about how your robot will work with other robots because you're making your robot's going to do well however it is and by itself. But then once you put 2 other robots on your alliance and 3 other robots on the opposing alliance, 6 robots on the field, how's your robot going to do then? You want to make sure that your robot works well with other robots. And another thing about this is you want to visualize how big the field is. So I know some teams might not know this, but the top of the processing barge in the center is 1.5 meters tall. That's very tall. And again, the field is also elevated. So the field is going to look huge to you just because it's as tall as a person. And then it's a few, like around a meter, I think, close to a meter off the ground. So I think that it's not going to occur to you how big it is until you take a look at the field drawings or the field CAD. And so I already went over a lot of the strategy things. So at the competition, one thing that happens is before every match, you should work out your strategy with your alliance partners because you want to have a plan going into your match, not just figuring out what you're doing in the match during the match, as that's going to often lead into some chaos and it'll make you panic a little bit more. So one tip that we did for this is our team actually printed out a laminated version of the field with like a whiteboard essentially. But if you just print out copies of the field drawing or something like that, so you have a drawing of the field, it's great to meet with the other teams in your alliance before the match and then work out. So ask them what they can do, and tell what your team can do. And then if sometimes teams won't believe you, just because I know as an FTC team, a veteran FTC team, a lot of teams will say they can do something and then not perform on it. So you should have a video of what your team can do. This is going to help because then it'll show the teams, oh, this is how you do that. And then it'll make it a lot easier for all your teams to visualize how your robot works. Then the majority of the match is just going to be scoring pollutants. That's going to be probably like 1:30 to 1:50 seconds worth of the match. And you want to work out who's going to do what during that match. For example, if there's a shooter, maybe you want that shooter to just stay in one place while you give it micro pollutants. Or maybe you want all 3 teams to be intaking and scoring on their own. You should figure that out before the match because that's going to make it a lot easier during the match. you should also have a plan for if a robot starts malfunctioning or breaks. You should make sure you know what you're going to do. And yeah, that's one thing. Before the competition, I believe First Global might release a guide on how to change the name of your Wi-Fi network. They did it last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they did it this year. You should be ready for that, and you should change your team name because right now your control hub name is like some random characters. They want you to have your like country name and a number in it. So you should do that. You should also update the firmware on your control hub and expansion hub because that'll help your motors work a lot better. And then finally, right before the competition, make sure that you switch your Wi-Fi channels to 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. So currently, default, it's on 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi, which is a lot slower, even though it has a larger range. You want it to be at 5 gigahertz because there's going to be less clutter as there are a lot of teams, Wi-Fi networks interfere with each other. 5 gigahertz is going to be a lot easier. And on switching Wi-Fi channels, I've made a video on this. It's going to be released a lot closer to the competition. Also, I did that for updating the firmware. That's going to be released later because our team does not want to release too many videos in one time period so that we don't like clog up all our social media. So that's one thing that you should be wary of is you should just prepare for the competition by doing that. And I'm just checking. Yeah, that's all I have for the tips I have currently. And if I do have any more tips, I'll be sure to post them on the WhatsApp group and the Discord.
I think that all you said a few minutes ago is really important. What you said of the strategy before the game, I think is really, really important. And also for the teams to have a video of what you do, what you really do. Because I had a great experience with teams that say that you can put micropollutants in the higher level of the processing board. You can put macropollutants in each part of the game. You can lift. You can help another robot to lift. But at the end of the day, you cannot do all what you say. So it would be really useful for all the teams if you have like a proof of what you really do. Also, to organize and talk with all the teams before each game to see what they can do and what they cannot to make the best strategy possible to have or to give the teams the opportunity to make the best game possible. I don't know if you have another recommendation, Mike?
Well, a personal recommendation is that, like you've said, the strategy before the game is something really important about organizing you with the teams that are going on your alliance and seeing what the robot of the team can do and then to make a personalized strategy for each game depending on the team. That is, well, it can be like Arjun said that maybe one team doesn't do anything and that another team can carry all of the alliance without any help. So it's a part that is pretty important for the teams to organize before the match. And another tip that I would say is that be sure to be to be inside the kit of parts and to not add or any other part that is not listed on the bill of materials. Because that will happen to be a pretty disaster if a team doesn't come with.
If you arrive to the competition and the judges look into your robot and find a piece that is not in the bill of materials, then you will have a lot of problems.
Yeah. One other thing that I just thought of, at the competition, make sure that you listen to the queuers, the people who are queuing your robot, and make sure you be on the field on the correct time because they have practically scripted all of the matches to the second. So if you aren't on the field at that time, you're not going to be playing. They're going to play your match without you. So that's something that you should do. Also, last year at least, on the first day, the Rev Robotics booth had a very, very long line near the beginning, but then the line got a lot shorter later on. So if you're going to try and go to the Rev Robotics booth to get like a replacement part or something, try and do that as soon as you can. First thing you do is go to the booth, as otherwise you're going to have to wait in a long line.
And I have a personal question. In FRC, even in FTC, you have like a specific scouting team.
Yes.
So how do you think you can implement like a scouting team or a specific team members to do this in the first global challenge competition? Because we are only 5 team members, and we have like our very specific task in the competition. So do you think it is important to do scouting when we are in the competition, and how can we make it the best way possible?
So I think that scouting is not needed at all in First Global. So last year, I'm not sure if you remember, but teams that were in eliminations, my team was also, did not have an idea of what was going on for the elimination matches until they just released randomized schedules, and there was no need for any scouting because they just randomly selected the teams. This year they're doing it a little bit better where it's less random. So if you take a look at the first global game manual, they actually have a table showing which teams, what the alliances are going to be based on rank. So like one is paired with team 10, something like that. I don't have it open, so I don't know the exact number. So
it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 8 goes with 9. Then it goes from 9 to 16 from the bottom to the top, and then the 17 goes with the number 1. So it was like something like this.
Yeah, so that means that there's no need for any scouting of your team. So I'm just going to pull that up on my screen just really quickly, just so I can take a look at it and refer to it. But this year, the elimination matches seem like they're going to be a lot more fair and much less random. Like last year, they paired like the 2 of the very top teams together in the same alliance. This year, it's going to be team. Let me see where it. I don't remember exactly where it is, but they say which teams are which makes it so you already know what your alliance is as soon as the rankings come out, except for like the last member of your alliance, which is chosen at random between a few numbers of teams. So there's no need for scouting in the first global competition just because you don't need to do picking. So in FRC and FTC, you have to do picking for your teams. The only reason you might do some scouting, which would just be one person looking at watching all of the matches and seeing which teams are doing great and which teams aren't doing as great, and just taking notes on the teams. The only reason you do that is if you want to have an idea of what happens when with your alliance, so that once you know your alliance members, you know what they're able to do. So that's something you should do if you want to. But I know our team doesn't scout, and a majority of the first global teams are not going to be scouting. And I agree with that sense that you shouldn't need to scout for first global.
Okay, well, thank you everybody. I'm sure these questions and of course this discussion and talk about the game strategy will be really useful for many of the teams who are watching us right now live. And I think it's 6:10. We are like 15 minutes out of schedule, but and it's been a pleasure to be here today with you. Remember that we are having more transmission like this one for more teams and more co-hosts. Well, thank you, Arjun, for being here today. You have been an amazing co-host. We really admire you for all of your experience and skills in the technical issues. And thank you for being here. I don't know if you got anything else to say.
Yeah, one last thing that I can't express enough of is that if your team needs help, ask for it. I myself, I try to be available for at least 12 hours a day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time, or 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, around that time, essentially whenever I'm awake, where I'll try to respond to you within 2 or 3 hours, unless there's something I'm doing, like I have a test or something, which otherwise I'm going to try and respond to you as soon as I can. And otherwise, if you have any questions, either send an email to wizards.exe at gmail.com or to Team Mexico. And if you send it to my team email address, I or another knowledgeable team member will respond to you. And if you want to be added to the WhatsApp group, make sure to contact us or Team Mexico, and we'll make sure you're added to that WhatsApp group. As I know there was a problem with bots getting on it and spamming the group earlier, so we have to make it a little bit harder to get into. So I don't want to make the link as easily accessible just so that we don't have a problem with bots on this group. And yeah, I personally check that group very often, as well as the First Global Discord, which I'll post a link in the Twitch chat very soon. And another thing, I mentioned I've made over 20 First Global videos. Not all of them have been released yet, so there are under 20 videos on our Wizards.exe FTC 9794 YouTube channel for this year that have been released. So they're going to be released in the coming weeks. So we're plans. Tomorrow is FTC kickoff, and so on the weekdays, probably starting Tuesday or Wednesday, we're going to continue releasing videos daily. Yeah. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show.
And well, thank you, Arjun, for being here. This has been an amazing opportunity to both share and learn from each other, help teams around the world to get to know more about First. And again, thank you very much for being here. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And well, guys, make sure to follow Arjun in their social medias, also Team Mexico. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Mike, too, for being here. We'll have more information about the next Global Talk soon. We are probably having it next week on Saturday. And well, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping tuned. We'll be back in 2 or 3 days with more information about Global Talks. And well, thank you very much for being here. Have a great day, guys.
Yeah, we would really like to have you maybe in the next edition of Global Talks. I don't know if you like to, but we are open to all the things you want to share with all the teams around the world. And I think if we can continue with this mechanic, we can help as much team as possible as we can.
Well, it has been a pleasure to have you here at Global Talks. I personally admire you for all that knowledge that you have, especially about programming. And well, thank you both guys for being here. And Ricardo,
well, thank you again, Arjun. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And I don't know, well, you have already said what you have to say. We really admire you. And there was a question that said, "Why do you know so much?" Now I can confirm that question. You do know so much. But that's amazing. Thank you for being here and sharing that with the teams. And well, thank you guys for being here. And we'll see you soon, Arjun. This is not the end.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
See you later.
See you later.